Welcome back, you beautiful anomaly. The world has a strange habit of celebrating people only after they survive everything designed to break them. They laughed when you stayed silent, doubted you when you stayed patient, and underestimated you because you refused to beg for attention. But now the same people who ignored your worth are forced to acknowledge your presence. Respect was never something you chased. It became the consequence of your resilience. People gained crazy respect for you, and honestly, it's about time. Because greatness doesn't arrive with noise, it arrives with undeniable results. Today, you'll discover why your journey was never punishment. It was preparation for a level they could never imagine. They looked at your dreams the way people look at a tiny spark in the middle of a storm, convinced it would disappear before it ever became a flame. They judged your beginning as if beginnings were supposed to look impressive. They measured your future by your current circumstances, forgetting that history has always been written by people who started with less than everyone expected. They believed your quiet moments were signs of weakness. They mistook your patience for fear. They confused your humility with a lack of confidence. That was their first mistake. There is something fascinating about human nature. Most people don't recognize potential because potential doesn't make noise. It doesn't demand attention. It works in silence, growing beneath the surface where impatient eyes cannot see it. While they were busy announcing every small achievement, you were building habits. While they chased applause, you chased improvement. While they collected opinions, you collected experience. Day after day, you made small decisions that nobody celebrated. You chose discipline over distraction, learning over complaining, and progress over popularity. Those choices looked ordinary in the moment, but together they created an extraordinary future. People often assume that success arrives in one dramatic moment. The truth is far less glamorous. Success is usually invisible until it becomes impossible to deny. It grows quietly through mornings when nobody is watching, nights when everyone else has given up, and moments when quitting would have been easier than continuing. The world only notices the finished masterpiece. It rarely sees the thousands of invisible brushstrokes that made it possible. The people who underestimated you weren't necessarily smarter or stronger than you. They simply became prisoners of first impressions. They believed that because you hadn't achieved something yet, you never would. They forgot that every expert was once a beginner, every leader was once ignored, and every remarkable story began as something ordinary. Their imagination ended where your determination began. You learned something powerful during those difficult seasons. Validation is addictive, but growth requires independence. The moment you stopped waiting for people to believe in you was the moment your real transformation started. Instead of spending energy convincing others, you invested that energy into becoming undeniable. You realized that arguments rarely change minds, but results always do. Success has a language that even your harshest critics understand. There were days when doubt tried to enter your mind. You questioned your direction, your abilities, and whether the sacrifices were worth it. That is normal. Courage has never meant the absence of doubt. Courage means continuing despite it. Every challenge strengthened muscles that comfort could never develop. Every setback sharpened your judgment. Every disappointment taught you something that easy victories never could. The obstacles that looked like barriers eventually became your greatest teachers. Meanwhile, the people who laughed remained exactly where they were. They became experts at discussing other people's lives instead of improving their own. They criticized because criticism is easier than discipline. They judged because judgment feels productive without requiring any effort. They created stories about why you would fail because imagining your failure protected them from confronting their own excuses. Then something changed. Slowly at first, almost too quietly to notice, the small victories began stacking together. The habits became results. The confidence you built through repetition started showing in the way you spoke, walked, and handled pressure. Opportunities that once seemed impossible suddenly found their way toward you. Doors that stayed closed for years began opening, not because luck finally arrived, but because you had become the kind of person prepared to walk through them. The same people who questioned your vision started asking for your advice. The ones who dismissed your goals suddenly called you talented, as though talent had appeared overnight. They ignored the years of invisible work and focused only on the visible rewards. They saw the destination without understanding the journey. What they called luck was actually consistency repeated long enough to produce extraordinary outcomes. Respect is strange. It rarely belongs to the loudest person in the room. It belongs to the individual whose actions continue speaking long after the conversation ends. Real respect cannot be demanded, borrowed, or manipulated. It is earned through reliability, integrity, resilience, and the willingness to continue when recognition is nowhere in sight. Every promise you kept to yourself added another layer to the foundation of that respect. The greatest victory was never proving your critics wrong. It was proving to yourself that your limits were far beyond what fear had whispered. Once you discovered that truth, external opinions lost their power. Praise no longer inflated your ego, and criticism no longer controlled your emotions. You became focused on the next challenge, the next lesson, the next level of growth. That mindset is what separates temporary success from lasting influence. Because when your identity is built on continuous improvement instead of public approval, no amount of doubt from others can stop the person you've decided to become. The loudest people in the room often believe they control the story. They assume that whoever speaks the most must know the most, that whoever attracts the most attention must possess the most power. But life has a way of exposing that illusion. Noise can dominate a moment, but silence dominates the outcome. While they were busy making announcements, predictions, and assumptions about your future, you were doing something far more dangerous. You were observing, you were learning, you were preparing. Most people fear silence because silence forces them to confront themselves. It removes distractions and leaves them alone with their thoughts, insecurities, and unfinished goals. That is why they constantly seek validation through conversation, social approval, and endless explanations. They want everyone to know what they plan to do before they have done it. You chose a different path. You understood that intentions impress no one for long. Execution is what changes everything. There is an invisible strength in saying less than you know. Every unnecessary word gives away information. Every emotional reaction reveals weakness to those looking for one. Every argument wastes energy that could have been invested in progress. You discovered that silence is not the absence of confidence. It is confidence that has matured beyond the need to prove itself. When you stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, your focus became sharper than ever before. Your silence confused people. They expected anger when they criticized you. They expected excuses when they underestimated you. They expected emotional reactions that would confirm the stories they had already created about you. Instead, they received nothing. That nothing frustrated them more than any response ever could. They searched for evidence that you were affected, but your calm became a mirror reflecting their own insecurity. While they wasted hours discussing your life, you spent those same hours improving it. Every conversation they had about your limitations became another opportunity for you to strengthen your abilities. They invested in gossip. You invested in growth. They collected opinions. You collected skills. They looked for shortcuts. You built systems. The distance between you was not created overnight. It was built one disciplined day at a time. People often underestimate the value of observation. They rush to speak before they understand. They interrupt before they listen. They react before they think. You learned that every room teaches something to the person who remains attentive. Every conversation reveals hidden motives. Every challenge exposes character. Instead of rushing to become the center of attention, you became the person paying attention to everything happening around you. That awareness gave you an advantage no loud personality could ever replace. Silence also protected your vision. Dreams exposed too early often become victims of unnecessary opinions. People project their fears onto your ambitions because they cannot imagine achieving what you imagine. Had you shared every plan, every strategy, and every goal with everyone around you, Countless voices would have attempted to convince you that success was unrealistic. Instead, you protected your progress. You allowed your results to introduce your vision long after your work had already begun. There were moments when staying silent required more strength than speaking. You heard false accusations. You watched people take credit for things they never earned. You witnessed individuals trying to provoke you into emotional battles that would distract you from your purpose. Responding would have felt satisfying for a moment, but you recognized the trap. Every unnecessary conflict steals attention from meaningful progress. You refuse to exchange your future for temporary satisfaction. As time passed, something remarkable happened. Those who once ignored your quiet confidence began paying close attention to your actions. They noticed that every promise you made to yourself eventually became reality. They realized that while they had been entertaining themselves with conversations, you had been constructing a life that spoke louder than words ever could. Suddenly, the same silence they once interpreted as weakness became the very quality they admired most. People began asking how you stayed so composed under pressure. They wanted to know your secret. The answer was simple but difficult to practice. You stopped allowing outside noise to become inside noise. You stopped carrying every opinion into your mind. You stopped treating criticism as a command and praise as a destination. You understood that emotional discipline is one of the greatest forms of personal freedom. The person who controls their reactions controls their direction. Your calm presence started changing the atmosphere wherever you went. You no longer needed to dominate conversations because your consistency had already earned attention. Others spoke loudly to be noticed. You were noticed because of what you had quietly accomplished. Your confidence no longer depended on convincing anyone. It rested on countless hours of preparation, sacrifice, and personal growth that nobody could erase with a careless opinion. Eventually, the people who once laughed at your silence found themselves studying it. They realized that while they had revealed every strategy, every weakness, and every emotional impulse, you had remained unpredictable. They could not manipulate someone who refused to react impulsively. They could not distract someone whose focus was anchored in purpose. They could not compete with someone who valued action more than appearance. In the end, your silence became far more powerful than their endless words, because while they were busy telling the world who they hoped to become, you quietly became the person they never expected to face. One of the greatest illusions people believe is that respect can be borrowed through popularity or purchased through approval. They spend years shaping their personality around other people's expectations, changing their opinions to fit the crowd, suppressing their true identity to avoid criticism, and chasing validation as though it were the highest achievement in life. But approval is temporary. It changes with trends, moods, and circumstances. Respect is different. Respect is built brick by brick through consistency, integrity, and the courage to remain authentic even when standing alone. There was a time when you probably wondered why your efforts seemed invisible. You watched people with louder voices receive more attention. You saw individuals with less discipline gain quicker recognition. It was tempting to believe that success belonged to those who knew how to impress rather than those who knew how to improve. But life has a strange way of rewarding patience. The applause given too early often disappears just as quickly. The respect earned through persistence grows stronger with every challenge overcome. You stopped asking a dangerous question that traps so many people. What do they think about me? Instead, you replaced it with a far more powerful one. Am I becoming someone I can respect? That single shift transformed everything. The moment your standards became internal instead of external, you gained freedom. You no longer woke up trying to satisfy strangers. You woke up determined to outgrow yesterday's version of yourself. Every promise you kept to yourself became another layer of confidence. Every early morning, every difficult decision, every temptation you resisted, every goal you completed without announcing it to the world strengthened your character. Nobody applauded those moments. Nobody handed you a trophy for choosing discipline over comfort. Yet those invisible victories shaped the person everyone eventually noticed. People admire confidence, but genuine confidence is simply the memory of promises kept to yourself. Consistency became your greatest advantage because consistency cannot be faked forever. Anyone can appear motivated for a day. Anyone can pretend to be determined for a week. But showing up repeatedly when excitement fades, when obstacles appear, and when nobody is watching separates extraordinary individuals from ordinary ones. You discovered that greatness is rarely created by dramatic actions. It is created through ordinary actions repeated with extraordinary commitment. Many people spend their lives trying to impress those who have already decided not to believe in them. They exhaust themselves explaining their intentions, defending their decisions, and seeking permission to pursue their dreams. You realize that this battle could never be won through words. Opinions are stubborn, results are undeniable. Instead of fighting every misunderstanding, you allowed time and consistency to become your greatest defenders. There were seasons when progress felt painfully slow. You questioned whether anyone noticed the sacrifices you were making. Friends disappeared because your priorities changed. Opportunities seemed delayed. Recognition remained distant. In those moments, it would have been easy to abandon your standards just to fit in again. But you understood something many never learn. Character is not revealed when life is easy. Character is revealed when staying committed becomes uncomfortable. Every setback tested your values. Every disappointment asked whether your principles were genuine or merely convenient. Every failure offered you two choices: compromise your standards or strengthen them. You chose growth, again and again. You refused to let temporary frustration redefine your long-term vision. That decision separated you from those who measured success by immediate rewards instead of lasting impact. Slowly, the people around you began noticing patterns. They realized you weren't changing your values depending on who entered the room. You treated success with humility and failure with responsibility. You remained composed during chaos and grateful during victory. While others chased attention through dramatic behavior, you earned admiration through quiet reliability. People may not immediately recognize consistency, but they eventually depend on it. Reliability creates trust, and trust becomes the foundation of lasting respect. The same individuals who once overlooked you started paying closer attention. They noticed that your confidence wasn't arrogance because it wasn't built on comparison. It was built on preparation. They realized your calm wasn't indifference because it came from emotional discipline rather than emotional emptiness. They understood that your resilience wasn't luck because they had witnessed how many obstacles you quietly overcame without demanding sympathy. What surprised them most was that your success never changed your character. Recognition didn't make you disrespectful. Achievement didn't make you reckless. Influence didn't make you forget the struggles that shaped you. Instead, greater success simply revealed more clearly who you had already become in private. That authenticity earned a deeper level of respect than talent alone ever could. The irony is that the moment you stopped chasing approval was the exact moment people began respecting you. Not because you suddenly became different, but because you finally became fully yourself. You no longer adjusted your worth according to applause. You no longer measured your value by the opinions of people who hadn't built the life you wanted. Your consistency became your reputation. Your integrity became your signature, and your discipline became the evidence that your confidence was earned rather than performed. Long after temporary trends fade and empty praise disappears, the respect built through unwavering character continues opening doors, inspiring others, and reminding the world that true influence belongs to those who never compromised who they were just to be accepted. The most interesting shift in life is not when your circumstances change. It is when the people who ignored you suddenly begin paying attention. They once walked past your ideas without a second thought. They dismissed your opinions before you could finish speaking. They assumed your ambition was unrealistic because they judged your future through the narrow lens of your present. But now something has changed. The silence in the room feels different. Conversations pause when you enter. Eyes follow your decisions. The same people who barely noticed your existence have started studying your every move, searching for the secret they once refused to believe existed. Success has a strange way of rewriting people's memory. Those who once laughed at your goals suddenly claim they always knew you would make it. Those who doubted your discipline now speak as though they recognized your greatness from the beginning. It is not because they became more honest. It is because undeniable results force people to rewrite the stories they once created about you. Reality has a habit of exposing assumptions. What they fail to understand is that your transformation was never an accident. Every confident step they see today was built upon thousands of uncertain ones. Every achievement they admire is supported by countless moments of failure, correction, sacrifice, and persistence that happened far away from public attention. They only witnessed the final chapter. They never saw the rough drafts, the sleepless nights, or the quiet battles that shaped your character. People often believe confidence appears after success. The truth is the opposite. Confidence grows every time you continue despite uncertainty, long before the world respected your abilities. You had already decided that your opinion of yourself would matter more than the opinions surrounding you. That private decision became the foundation upon which every visible achievement was built. Now, they watch everything you do. They notice the way you carry yourself under pressure. They analyze your words, your habits, your routines, and even your silence. Some hope to discover the formula behind your growth. Others secretly wish to find a flaw that allows them to believe your success is temporary. It is easier for insecure people to search for weaknesses in others than to confront the excuses limiting their own lives. You became unpredictable because you stopped reacting emotionally to every situation. While others expected impulsive decisions, you responded with patience. While they chased instant rewards, you invested in long-term progress. That difference confused them. They were used to competing against people driven by ego. They were unprepared to face someone driven by purpose. The fascinating part is that people rarely study failure with the same intensity they study success. When you struggled, few asked how they could help. When you were overlooked, almost nobody wanted to understand your journey. But the moment your progress became visible, curiosity exploded. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know your morning routine, your mindset, your habits, and your strategies. They ignored the years of discipline that made those strategies effective. They searched for shortcuts while overlooking consistency. Your growth also revealed something uncomfortable. It exposed the difference between those who genuinely supported you and those who merely tolerated you while they believed you would remain beneath them. Real supporters celebrated your victories because your success inspired them. Hidden competitors became uncomfortable because your achievements challenged the stories they told themselves about why they had stopped trying. Some people now imitate your behavior. They copy your words, your style, your confidence, and even your decisions. They believe success can be replicated by copying appearances. They forget that your visible habits are only the surface. The real transformation happened within your mindset. It happened every time you chose responsibility over excuses, discipline over comfort, and learning over pride. Those internal choices cannot be copied overnight. You no longer seek attention because attention naturally follows competence. That is one of the greatest lessons your journey has taught. Chasing recognition often pushes it further away. Becoming exceptional quietly attracts it without effort. The more you focused on mastering yourself, the less you worried about being noticed. Ironically, that is exactly when people began noticing you. Their admiration is no longer based on potential. It is based on proof. They have watched you remain calm when others panicked. They have seen you recover from setbacks that would have broken many people. They have witnessed your ability to keep moving without making excuses. Whether they admit it publicly or not, they recognize that your resilience has become your greatest advantage, yet the greatest danger arrives at this stage. It is easy to become distracted by the attention you once desired. Praise can become as addictive as criticism is painful. But you understand something that many successful people forget. The attention itself has no value unless it motivates greater responsibility. Being watched means your actions carry greater influence. Every decision now teaches someone else what discipline looks like, what patience sounds like, and what authentic confidence feels like. So while others continue observing your every move, trying to decode the mystery behind your rise, you keep your eyes fixed on the next level of growth. You understand that your purpose was never to become an object of admiration. Your purpose is to continue evolving until even the version of yourself that earned everyone's respect becomes nothing more than another milestone on a journey that has only just begun. The greatest change in your life did not begin the day people started respecting you. It began much earlier, in the quiet moments when you changed the way you thought. Before your circumstances improved, your mindset did. Before opportunities arrived, your perspective transformed. While everyone else was waiting for the perfect moment to take action, you realized something that most people never understand. The quality of your life will never rise above the quality of your thinking. The moment you mastered your mind, you stopped being controlled by your circumstances. Most people believe success is created by talent. Others think it comes from luck, timing, or powerful connections. Those things may open a door, but they cannot keep someone inside the room. What separates extraordinary individuals from ordinary ones is the way they think when life becomes difficult. Anyone can remain positive when everything is working in their favor. The real test begins when plans fail, when support disappears, when progress slows, and when doubt starts whispering louder than hope. That is where mindset becomes the deciding factor. You stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, you began asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That simple shift turned every obstacle into an opportunity. Failure stopped feeling like a verdict and became feedback. Rejection stopped looking like the end and became redirection. Delays stopped feeling like punishment and became preparation. You realized that every difficult season was strengthening something inside you that comfort never could. People noticed your results, but they never saw the invisible battles inside your mind. They never witnessed the mornings when fear tried to convince you to stay where it was safe. They never saw the evenings when exhaustion tempted you to give up. They never heard the conversations you had with yourself, choosing discipline over excuses, courage over comfort, and responsibility over blame. Every victory the world applauds was first won inside your thoughts. One of the biggest differences between you and those who underestimated you is that you learned to control your emotions instead of allowing your emotions to control you. When something went wrong, you refused to panic. When someone criticized you, you refused to let their opinion define your identity. When success finally arrived, you refused to become arrogant. Emotional control became your hidden advantage because clear thinking always outperforms emotional reactions. Many people lose because they react before they reflect. They allow temporary frustration to create permanent mistakes. A single insult ruins their focus. One setback destroys months of momentum. One disappointment convinces them that they are not good enough. You chose a different path. You understood that every reaction has a cost. Instead of responding impulsively, you trained yourself to pause, observe, and think strategically. That pause became one of the most valuable habits you ever developed. Strategy replaced impulse in every area of your life. You stopped chasing every opportunity and started choosing the right ones. You stopped comparing your journey with everyone else's timeline. You stopped measuring success by speed and started measuring it by direction. You realized that moving slowly toward the right destination is always better than running toward the wrong one. That wisdom protected you from countless distractions disguised as opportunities. Your mindset also changed the way you viewed other people. Instead of becoming jealous of someone's success, you became curious about their habits. Instead of complaining about those who achieved more, you studied what they did differently. Every successful person became a lesson instead of a threat. Every challenge became training instead of suffering. This perspective allowed you to grow while others remained trapped in comparison. The people around you assumed your confidence came from natural ability. They had no idea it came from preparation. Confidence is not magic. It is earned through repetition. Every time you honored your commitments, Your belief in yourself became stronger. Every difficult decision you made reinforced the identity you were building. You stopped hoping to become disciplined one day because you started acting like a disciplined person today. Identity always follows repeated action. As your thinking evolved, your circle began to change as well. Some people felt inspired by your growth, while others became uncomfortable. They were not reacting to your success alone. They were reacting to the reminder that they had also been capable of changing but chose comfort instead. Your progress exposed possibilities they had buried beneath excuses. That is why growth often creates distance. Not everyone is willing to travel where discipline leads. Eventually, the world started seeing what had been developing inside you all along. The respect, opportunities, and influence you enjoy today are simply reflections of an internal transformation that happened long before anyone noticed. People call it luck because they never saw the years you spent rebuilding your mindset. They admire your confidence without understanding the doubts you defeated. They celebrate your achievements without recognizing the countless invisible choices that created them. Your greatest victory was never becoming successful in the eyes of others. It was becoming mentally strong enough that whether people praised you, doubted you, applauded you, or ignored you, your direction never changed because your mind had become the one place no outside opinion could ever control. Reaching a place where people finally respect you can feel like the finish line, especially if you spent years being ignored, underestimated, or dismissed. But this is where many people make their biggest mistake. They confuse recognition with completion. They believe that once respect arrives, the work is over. In reality, respect is not the destination. It is an invitation to something greater. It is proof that the foundation is strong enough to support a legacy. The applause you hear today is not the end of your story. It is simply confirmation that your next chapter carries even greater responsibility. Think about the people who left a permanent mark on history. They were not remembered because they won one battle or achieved one success. They became unforgettable because they refused to stop growing after the world finally noticed them. They understood that achievement creates attention, but character sustains influence. Anyone can have one remarkable season. Few people possess the discipline to remain consistent year after year, challenge after challenge, and setback after setback. That is the mindset you must protect now. The moment you become satisfied with your current level is the moment your growth begins to slow. Comfort has destroyed more potential than failure ever has. Failure forces you to improve. Comfort whispers that improvement is no longer necessary. It convinces talented people that yesterday's victories are enough to guarantee tomorrow's success. But life rewards those who continue evolving long after everyone else has settled. There will always be people who expect you to relax now that you have earned respect. They will tell you to enjoy your position, stop pushing so hard, and celebrate what you have accomplished. There is nothing wrong with gratitude, but gratitude should never become an excuse for complacency. Appreciate how far you have come while remaining hungry for how far you can still go. The strongest competitors are not trying to catch yesterday's version of you. They are preparing for tomorrow. That means you must prepare even harder. Your greatest competition has never been another person. It has always been the version of yourself that is capable of more than you have currently achieved. Every new level demands a stronger mindset, deeper discipline, greater humility, and sharper wisdom. The habits that brought you here may not be enough to take you further. Growth requires constant adaptation. It asks you to remain a student even when others begin calling you a master. One of the greatest signs of maturity is understanding that influence is not measured by how many people admire you. It is measured by how many people become stronger because of your example. Respect gains real value only when it inspires responsibility. Every choice you make now teaches others what perseverance looks like. Every challenge you overcome quietly gives someone else permission to believe in their own potential. Whether you realize it or not, your actions have become a message that others are reading every day. Never allow praise to become your fuel. Praise changes with circumstances. Some people will celebrate you today and criticize you tomorrow. If your motivation depends on applause, your consistency will disappear the moment the applause fades. Build your identity on principles instead of popularity. Let discipline become your motivation. Let purpose become your direction. Let integrity become your reputation. Those qualities remain valuable regardless of public opinion. You also have to remember where you came from. The struggles that once tested you should never be forgotten, simply because life has improved. Those difficult seasons built the resilience that people admire today. Forgetting them creates arrogance. Remembering them creates wisdom. Stay humble enough to respect the journey, because humility protects success while pride quietly destroys it. There will be moments when success tries to distract you. New opportunities will compete for your attention. More people will want your time, your energy, and your approval. Not every opportunity deserves a yes. One of the greatest skills you can develop is learning what to ignore. Every unnecessary commitment steals focus from what matters most. Greatness is not achieved by doing everything. It is achieved by doing the right things with extraordinary consistency. As your influence grows, your words will carry greater weight. Speak carefully. Lead by example before leading with advice. People rarely remember speeches as much as they remember behavior. The way you respond to failure, criticism, success, and pressure will teach more than any motivational message ever could. Live in a way that your actions make your words believable. The world will continue changing. New challenges will appear. New competitors will emerge. New obstacles will test your patience and your character. Do not fear those moments. Welcome them. Every challenge is another opportunity to become someone stronger than you were yesterday. The person who embraces growth never runs out of possibilities, because every difficulty becomes another lesson waiting to be mastered. So walk forward with confidence, but never with arrogance. Accept respect with gratitude, but never depend on it. Celebrate your victories, but never let them define your limits. The world may finally recognize your value today, but your greatest contribution still lies ahead. Your mission is no longer to prove people wrong. Your mission is to become the kind of person whose discipline, integrity, courage, and relentless pursuit of excellence continue creating an impact long after your name is spoken, your achievements are admired, and your journey becomes the standard that reminds others what is possible when someone refuses to stop becoming better.